Hi, thank you for tuning in. Today we will look at Philip K. Dick's Confessions of a Crap Artist, written in 1959 and published in 1975. It is set in 1950s Northern California and portrays an America that is perfect on the surface but rotten on the inside. The novel anatomizes a marriage in collapse, portrays a neurodivergent brother, and unmasks a suburban milieu that is saturated with quiet cruelty. In some aspects, the book was a premonition of events in Dick's own life, as in the late 1960s he became involved with Nancy Hackett while she was still married to another man. Their relationship began as an affair, and she later left her husband to be with Dick, eventually becoming his fifth wife in 1973. Stripped of Baroque plotting, this novel reveals Dick as a craftsman of clarity and dialogue. The sentences are deceptively simple. The tonal control is not. Comedy arrives as a dry understatement, horror as administrative detail. The suburban setting, West Marin, with its hobby farms, status anxieties, and long afternoons, becomes a pressure chamber for small humiliations. Reviewers have rightly tagged the book a painfully accurate portrait of 1950s California life, coining it a study of mid-century domestic corrosion. Formally, Confessions depends on alternate perspective taking. Dick alternates among first-person and third-person chapters using the journals and field notes of Jack Isidore, the self-described crap artist, alongside sections that track the domestic warfare between Fay and Charlie Hume. Jack's voice is both comic and unnerving in its autistic honesty. He is into fringe phenomena like UFOs, mistakes obsessive record keeping for understanding, and eventually joins an apocalyptic sect promising the end of the world to take place on April 23rd, 1959. The shifting perspectives the novel is told through allow the reader to switch from micro to macrocosm, from the personal view of one mind to a household, and finally to a community. This gives one the opportunity to examine an institution such as marriage, both from the inside and the outside. Contemporary readers do notice that the character Jack Isidore reads as having traits we would now associate with autism. Jack is socially awkward and obsessively empirical, but luckily Dick refuses to sentimentalize his character. Jack is funny, irritating, and sometimes generous, but he is not a veiled genius. At the same time, the novel quietly inverts our expectation that rationality resides with the neurotypical characters in the novel. Fay and Charlie's ordinary adult lives, business dealings, dinner parties, or marital politics prove at last as delusional as Jack's cosmologies and conspiracy theories. The respectably deluded couple, armed with money, status, and social technique, while Jack's honesty is ethically preferable, it also disarms him compared to the couple. Dick relocates his classic trope: can truth withstand power? From interplanetary conspiracies to the level of the kitchen and the barn. Jack's involvement with a doomsday group could have felt like a satirical aside, but the sect offers what suburban life withholds: meaning, schedule, and a fellowship of certainty. When the cataclysm promised by the sect fails to arrive, the humiliation is not just theological, it exposes how badly ordinary language copes with error. People do not shed false worlds, they re-narrate them. The heart of the novel is the deteriorating relationship between a husband and a wife. The character of Fay, the wife, is widely considered to be at least partially based on Philip K. Dick's real-life third wife, Anne Williams Rubinstein. Biographical research demonstrates that Fay's personality traits, manipulative, socially dominant, controlling in domestic life, bear a strong resemblance to how Dick later described Anne during their difficult marriage. Also, the novel was written shortly before their divorce in 1963, and Dick himself, in later interviews, acknowledged that it drew on his feelings and observations during the breakdown of that relationship. That said, Fay is not a direct transcript of Anne. Dick exaggerates and rearranges events, creating a composite character that also drew from women he knew in the Northern California's bohemian scene. Charlie, her husband, presents as the counterweight, resentful, misogynistic, economically capable, and their marriage becomes a slow-motion experiment in coercion. Dick lets their manipulations progress in petty humiliations, strategic flirtations, and social performances until the domestic sphere feels like a laboratory for cruelty. When reading the book, one does get the impression that the level of manipulation and gaslighting on display here must be rooted in real-life experience of the author. It's important to emphasize that PKD's mental health was fragile throughout much of his adult life, particularly during the amphetamine-fueled periods in the late 60s and early 70s. His paranoia, mood swings, and delusional episodes often played a direct role in abusive behavior. However, these factors do not excuse possible abuse, but they contextualize how it arose. The character of Fay can plausibly be interpreted as exhibiting narcissistic traits, though PKD never diagnoses her explicitly in the novel. We only know that she visits a psychiatrist 3 times a week. Much of her energy goes toward cultivating her image, personal comfort, and social dominance. She routinely undermines and controls Charlie, and she uses Jack and others as pawns in her interpersonal conflicts. She seems indifferent to the emotional and physical harm her actions cause, focusing instead on how situations affect her socially or materially. She also takes satisfaction in winning interpersonal conflicts and being recognized as the more competent or desirable person. From a psychological perspective, these traits do line up with grandiose narcissism. Some biographical readings of Confessions of a Crap Artist do suggest that Philip K. Dick projected aspects of himself, including narcissistic tendencies, into Fay's character. Biographers and acquaintances often described PKD as highly self-referential in conversation and in his fiction, frequently folding personal experiences and grievances into his work, as well as needing admiration and reassurance about his genius. PKD furthermore was easily wounded by criticism, yet also capable of sharp, often unfair criticism of others, and he was prone to idealizing and devaluing people, particularly the women in his life. There's also a layer of gendered projection. PKD often used female characters as vessels for traits he feared or disliked in himself. So the scene that I'm going to read you is when Fay asks her soon-to-be lover Nat to help her with balancing her checkbook. So she picked him up with her car. They drove to her house, and now they're going to get into an argument. To that, she said nothing. She seemed to shrink back. But then, when she had turned the Buick into the cypress-lined driveway of their house, she said, "You know, you didn't have to come over. I know how you feel about me. You think I'm heedless and demanding and indifferent to other people's welfare. But I've done the most for other people's welfare than anybody else around here. What have you done for this area since you moved in?" she said. She said it all calmly, but he saw that she was upset. "Well," she said. "I think he's right," he thought. "Charlie is right about her. At least to some extent. She does have a childish quality, a sort of brashness. Then why am I here?" he asked himself. "Can't I say no to her?" "You want to go back?" Fay said. Stopping the car, she put the automatic transmission into reverse and, with a squeal of tires, backed out of the driveway, swinging the car wildly in a turn as it reached the road. The front end missed the mailbox on its post by inches. He automatically tensed himself, waiting for the sound of metal against wood. "I'll drive you back," she said, shifting into forward range and starting back down the road. "I'm not going to make you do something that you don't want to do. The decision is yours." He said, feeling as if he was talking to an angry child, "I don't mind helping you with your bills." At that, to his surprise, she said, "I didn't ask you to come over to help me with the bills. The hell with the bills." Her voice rose. "What do I care about the bills? That's none of my business. It's up to him to pay them, the goddamn bills. Fuck the bills. I wanted you to come over because I'm lonely. Good God." Her voice grated. "Charlie's been in hospital for over a month and I'm going crazy sitting around the house. I'm about ready to go out of my mind. Cooped up with the kids driving me nuts. And that nutty motherfucking brother of mine, that fruit." She sounded so mad, so fed up and exasperated that he was amused. The strident clamorousness of her, it did not go with her appearance, her leanness, her slight, almost underdeveloped body. Now she had begun to cough, deep, hoarse coughs, as if a man were sitting beside him coughing a man's cough. "I've been smoking 3 packs of L&Ms a day," she informed him. "Good God, I've never smoked so much in my entire life. No wonder I can't gain any weight. God!" She said it with stunned amazement. "What do I pay that hick psychiatrist $300 a month for, that asshole?" "Calm down," he said to her. "Drive back to your place, we'll get the bills done, and then we'll have a drink or a cup of coffee, and then I have to get back to my studies." "Why didn't you bring your books over, you asshole?" she said. "I thought I was coming over to work." "God," she said, "God, good God, I never heard anything so ridiculous in my entire life. My goodness." She seemed utterly floored. "I went to so much trouble to find something that wouldn't bring that 1926-looking wife of yours along. It doesn't bother you if I talk about your wife, does it?" Slowing the car, driving with one hand, she turned toward him, saying, "You know, you've stimulated me ever since I first laid eyes on you, don't you? My God, I've as much as told you 6 times. Remember that night I asked you to wrestle with me? What did you think I wanted to wrestle with you for? I was sure your wife caught on, and my God, all you did was throw me on the floor and walk off and leave me. Did you know I had a black and blue mark on my ass for a week afterwards?" To that he had nothing to say. His head was swimming. "God," she said more compulsively now, "I've never been so attracted to a man. I was attracted to both of you, you and your big old wool sweaters. Where did you even get those sweaters?" Without pausing, she said, "Why do you ride a bike? Didn't you have a bike as a child? Didn't your family give you a bike?" He said, "There's nothing wrong with a grown person riding a bike. Can I ride it sometime?" "Sure," he said, "of course you can. Is it hard?" He said, You haven't even ridden a bike? No, she said. This one has a gear shift, he said. It's English. Now she did not seem to be listening to him. She drove in a preoccupied manner, her face somber. Listen, she said after a while. Are you going to go running home to your wife and tell her about my propositioning you? He said, Are you propositioning me? No, she said, of course not. You propositioned me, don't you remember? She said it with absolute conviction. Isn't that why you came over? Good God, I wouldn't dare let you in the house. That's why I'm driving you back. They had gotten almost to his house now, and he realized abruptly that she really intended to drop him off. I'm not letting you into my place, she told him. Not without your wife. If you want to come over, you bring her along. With anger, he said loudly, You're a nut, a real nut. What? She said falteringly. Don't you pay any attention to anything you say? That seemed to crush her. Don't pick on me, she said. Don't you get picky. Why do you pick on me? Her tone reminded him of the younger child's tone, the whining, self-pitying tone. Perhaps she was calculatedly imitating her child's tone. He had an intuition to that effect. It was both a satire and theft. She used it and satirized it simultaneously, waiting to see how he reacted. I think you're a real kick, he said. And he did. She intrigued him, her flashing moves. He could not tell at any moment in which way she would jump. She seemed to have an infinite supply of energy. She went on and on without fatigue. You don't take me seriously at all, she said. And then she smiled at him, a mechanical, even formal smile. Well, thanks for wanting to help me. They had come to his house, and she was stopping the car. She evidently was quite angry at him, quite cold. I really am furious with you, she said in a dead level voice. I really am. I'll never forgive you for your treatment of me. The hell with you. She leaned over and grabbed the car door. So long. So long, he said, stepping out. The door slammed. The car roared off. In a daze, he started up the steps to his own porch. I think it's just if you've ever had a narcissist in your life, I think it's it's a perfect description of how they function. You know, the gaslighting and the revision of history. I mean, this is instantaneous revision of history. So throughout the book he does a wonderful job portraying that condition. The novel's culminating violence is morally chilling because it is intimate and plausible. Having learned of Fay's affair, Charlie plots to murder her, but then instead he turns the violence on the animals under his care before unaliving himself. From a narrative standpoint, this is the culmination of Charlie's progressive unraveling, both mentally and morally. Up until that point, Charlie is portrayed as domineering, insecure, and obsessed with maintaining control, particularly over Fay and their domestic sphere. His violence toward the animals is shocking, but it's consistent with the novel's portrayal of him as someone whose sense of power and masculinity hinges on domination. Personally, I had to read over this particular chapter just because I cannot stand violence against animals. Dick situates this horror within a chain of everyday degradations rather than a sudden psychotic break. The bleak suggestion is that bourgeois normalcy carries its own slow fuse. In the aftermath of Charlie's death, legalities and real estate logistics take center stage. Jack's inheritance of half the house, Fay's pressure to buy him out, underscoring how institutions such as marriages tend to metabolize catastrophe into paperwork. That bureaucratic digestion is pure Dick. Reality is less an ontological condition than a system of receipts. Ultimately, Jack chooses therapy, not conversion or rebellion. An ending that is neither triumphant nor tragic, but recognizably human. Confessions of a Crap Artist is a rigorously local study in human failure, performed in the key of domestic realism. By making delusion funny until it isn't, and cruelty ordinary until it kills, Dick demonstrates that his signature theme, the instability of reality, is not a metaphysical parlor game but a social hazard. The suburbs, he suggests, are already a kind of science fiction, a designed environment that teaches people what to ignore and how to narrate what remains. In that sense, this novel is among Dick's purest achievements. It shows that the most frightening alternate world is the one we build for ourselves in good faith, because it feels like home. As with most of PKD's books, I can highly recommend this one. I give it 3 out of 5 bags of dog feed. I hope this review was worth your time. If you like this episode, please give it a like, and I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.